Hello and welcome to Enter the Nerdosphere. I'm Clayton, one of your hosts. I'm joined as always by my brother Corbin and our good friend Tim. How we doing, boys?
What's up?
Doing just fine.
Good deal. How's life treating everybody? It's been a minute since this podcast has been on the airwaves, and we have a new host with us today with our good friend Tim. So Tim, why don't you take a second, just say hi to the folks out there.
I think I got to get this off my chest. Okay, so I'm super excited to talk with you guys every week, but we've been talking an awful lot lately. So I don't know. Like I feel like I'm in a bad marriage right now where we're just talking nonstop. You guys aren't even listening to me. So maybe this podcast will be a way for you guys to finally get your heads out of your asses and listen to some sound logic, because your opinions are usually like ass backwards.
What was that?
Yeah, it's been brought. It's episode 1. It's been brought.
No, like I wasn't listening.
Yeah, see?
I heard bad marriage, and then like PTSD like set in. I kind of just like phased out.
Oh God. All right. Well, for those who don't know, this is Enter the Nerdosphere, a podcast where we discuss anything you can nerd out about, from the big screen to the small screen and anything in between. Each week, we discuss a different topic, whether that be a movie or a show or a book or music. If you can nerd out about it, we're going to talk about it. Remember, if you love what we do and you want to support us, you can do that by doing several things, one of which, and the easiest, is to leave a review on your podcast service of choice. iTunes seems to be the biggest thing, but we're on Spotify now, and that seems to be pretty big too. So just leave us a rating. That really helps, especially on iTunes, to put us up where people can see us. If you really love what we do, check out our new Patreon at patreon.com/thenerdosphere. We got a few different tiers there that gives you some goodies. Check it out if you really do like us.
And if you don't like us, you should just listen more, because you clearly haven't had enough time to learn to love us yet.
Let that Stockholm Syndrome sit in there.
All right. So what have we been doing? That's what we're going to talk about now. Let's start with Tim. What have you been doing lately? This being our first episode, this could encompass lots of things. Going forward, we'll just talk about what we did during the week, whether that be what we watched, what we read, what we played, what you came across at the gym. But why don't you go ahead and get us started there?
I mean, you mentioned the gym. If you guys haven't liked and followed us on Facebook, you're missing out. We're going to put lots of great, short, little funny videos out there about our takes on life or movies or breaking news or whatever it may be. But I feel like if you haven't checked out the Facebook page, I got to go ahead and just break down a really quick story for you. You can get a lot more detail. Go to Facebook, watch the full thing. It's great. So, here, I'm trying to get back in shape, okay? And I'm not like the buffest dude in the room. I'm not even close. I'm going to the gym so that when my wife makes delicious chocolate cake, I can have like a second or third piece and not feel too bad about it. Okay. So It's just about maintaining right now. Right. Mm-hmm, so I'm at the gym, and right out of the gate, I run into 3 absolute weirdos at the gym. The first guy clearly needs to go take a shower. Okay. He's beet red. He's soaking wet. Ooh. Okay. Looks like he just got his ass whipped at the gym. And he pulls out a bottle of man cologne, and he douses his entire body in it.
Like one of those giant green bottles of Polo with the gold lid?
Yes, like 15 pumps later. And not just pumps, like he's bare-ass naked while he's doing it. He's pumping his bald head. He's pumping his crotch. He's pumping his armpits. I mean, he's really working it right here. Ugh. So, I mean, maybe he had a fancy date? Ugh, I don't know.
Poor woman.
Or man. I mean, who puts cologne on their bare skin anyway?
Nobody. You're supposed to do like, what is it, 3 to 5 sprays in the air, and then you walk through it. That's the proper way.
That's exactly
You're
right.
supposed to do little spritz on your wrist.
Corbin, you're wrong. You don't put it on your wrist.
Spritzing the wrist is a girl thing.
Wow. Okay. But also a nice little trick, Mr. No Skin. Maybe it's because you haven't been in the dating world in a little while, and maybe I have to get into it, so I'm looking up tips online. But if you put a little bit of cologne behind your ears, it's supposed to bring in the nose of your date.
No, it's a lie. My body is made of strong pheromones that women need to smell. Okay, I can't kill my pheromones with this bullshit that people are spraying all over themselves. Okay, they need to get in and they need to get a whiff of the real Tim.
That's right.
That's all I need. Okay, so
there's a lot to be said for that too, because if you don't like the natural smell of somebody, it's not going to work.
I'm at the phase of life where I don't want to impress anybody. Like, take it or leave it, because I don't want to have to work hard. Okay, I work hard as it is. I don't want to have to work hard.
You shouldn't have to work hard, Tim. You shouldn't have to.
All right, so first guy dousing himself in cologne. That's not even the craziest thing. I come back to the gym, or I come back to the locker room after a workout. There's a guy in the bathroom. There's public blow dryers, which has always been a little freaking weird to me, right? Like, who goes to the gym and says, "Ooh, I'm glad that there's public blow dryers here because I need to, I need to like gel my hair or something." Like, who does that? Okay, that's probably something you guys do because you guys have thick, luscious, beautiful hair, and I have thin, terrible hair, shitty hair. Okay, so
I have luscious hair from my head to my chin to my chest to my back, all the way down to my ass crack.
Yeah, well, that's a really great segue, because I looked over and this old dude is using the public blow dryer to dry his ball sack.
Oh,
I mean, and it looked, I'm not sitting there like trying to watch, but it's also kind of like a car wreck. Like, I can't turn away. And let me tell you, it was dangerously close to the danger zone. Like, it maybe was going to start smelling like burnt hair up in that bitch. I mean, it was bad. Okay, and he's looking me in the eye while he's doing it, and he's got this shitty little. Yes, he's got this shitty little smirk on his face, like, yeah, I know this is freaking weird, and I don't care.
He's establishing dominance, and you took it.
He clearly is the alpha, because I got the hell out of there as quick as I could.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's his.
But I feel like I was maybe in a Jordan Peele movie where, like, everywhere I went, things just got more fucked. Okay, so I go to my locker. Nobody's around me. I feel safe. Okay, get the locker open. Old guy comes up from behind. I'm like, oh, shit, they're everywhere. Okay, so he comes up and he's talking to me. He's a really nice guy. Okay, he changes, sits down. We have these really nice wooden benches at the gym. And I'm not looking at him. I'm like focused on getting changed as quick as I can. I got the locker open so nobody can see my business, okay? Like, you open the locker, you're changing inside the locker with the door guarding the goods, okay? In the meantime, this guy is sitting down, bare-ass naked on this wood bench. He puts his socks on first. He puts his T-shirt on first. Then he stands up. He's still talking to me. I look over. He's talking to me this whole time. Okay, he's talking to me about Mizzou. Okay, where I live in Columbia, Missouri. The University of Missouri is right here. Mizzou had a big basketball game tonight where we got our ass kicked from Tennessee. But he's talking to me about the game. He's asking if I'm a Mizzou fan. He's excited about this game. And I look over at him, and at first I don't think anything's weird because he's standing up talking to me, and I'm like, okay, yeah, he's got his T-shirt on. And then I kind of look down. I'm like, go! He's got no pants on. Socks? Yes. Shirt? Yes. Underwear? Not even out of the locker yet. What are you doing? Okay, so I get a glimpse of it and I turn away instantly. And I look down at this nice, beautiful wood bench that I mentioned. Yeah. And you can clearly see a sweat outline of his butt and his saggy old man balls.
Now,
just right there.
This is not that strange. This is not that strange. No, let me break this down for you because I know where this guy has been, where he's going, and I understand. I get it. Okay, if he has a sweat line and a sweat outline of his anus and his scrotum, this man is not ready to conceal that musk into some tidy whities, okay? He has to let it breathe, let it dry. Otherwise, whatever residue and moisture is still there is going to rub against his chub rub, which I know he has since it took you a little bit to even notice his pee-pee was hanging out. And it's going to stank to high heaven later on in the day. He's got to let his boys dangle and dry. That's why I walk around exclusively with no pants whenever I'm home.
That's fine. That's fine. First of all, he's not at home. Second of all, there's a thing called towels. You can wrap a towel
Maybe he didn't
to
have one.
conceal your junk from the public
Tim,
and
did he
still
have a towel?
accomplish the same situation.
I don't think
Because
he had a
if he
towel.
had a
But
towel,
Does the
I would
gym not
imagine those are
provide
sitting
towels?
on
Are
the
there not
straight
towels
wood.
in the gym?
okay, so this is kind of a higher end gym, and you have to pay to rent
here we
a
go.
towel.
Here we go.
Okay, so I
ain't rich enough.
understand.
Listen, I have just enough money to go to the gym. I am not paying another dime to have a towel just so you don't have to see my pee-pee hang out while I let it dry.
All right, so here's 3 other options for you. If you have to let it hang out and dry,
There's stalls, right? Stalls?
I mean, you could go get some paper towels in the bathroom and dry it off. You could be like me if I get too sweaty. You can use your gym shirt and your shorts, whatever. You're going to probably need to wash it. If you're that stinky, you should wash it that night anyway.
yeah.
Just use that as your towel.
Now, so my preferred method is to bend both of my knees into about a 75-degree angle, position my hand around my waist, and then I thrust forward and backward. But if you
Oh
do
my
that for
God.
about a solid 30 seconds, those boys are going to be dry in no time. And you know what? At that point, you just have to own it. So you look the person in the eye in the room and you talk to them because you're having a good time.
You're not doing that in front of people. You
It's
are
like a
not
wet
doing
dog.
that in front of people.
Like a wet dog, right?
Like a wet dog.
Okay, so like my day was reaffirmed. I should not go to the gym anymore. Like the gym is not a
It
safe
was
place.
It was
It's
a sign.
not a safe place.
3 of them.
Okay, 3 signs in one. They say bad things come in threes. It happened
Yeah.
today. Okay,
Maybe just don't go so early in the day when there's so many old farts. You
it was
gotta go
1:30 in
at
the
6
afternoon,
I
Corbin.
know, but you have to go at 6 o'clock when they're already at home eating their pudding cups.
I can't. Ain't nobody got time at 6 p.m. I gotta get
Nobody
home.
got time at 6 p.m.
Right, my
Gotta
wife
get
would
home
kill
with the
me if I
kids.
didn't get home until
You
6
gotta
p.m.
eat
I got kids.
Dinner.
I
You
got
gotta,
dogs.
like, sit around and pretend like you're a part of the family.
I have to ignore, I don't know, 317 text messages from you assholes and pretend like I'm interested in my family.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a thing.
So we're going to do this new skit. We're going to see if it works. I seem to run into the weirdest shit. I don't know if it's my luck. I don't know what it is, but we're just going to call it Adventures in Timming. I think that seems pretty good. We used to have this running joke at work. It was a Timism, right? Because something crazy always seems to happen to me. Yeah, so I'll make sure to keep that stuff coming over the next few weeks. As far as other stuff I've been doing, I've been playing catch up like crazy. So I'm watching The Witcher right now, which I've got a lot of feelings about. I'm sure we'll talk about The Witcher in another episode. Everybody's comparing The Witcher to Game of Thrones right now. Okay, and I'm not to the
fair.
end. I'm not to the end yet. I'm only like halfway through the season. Okay, so don't you be assholes and spoil it for me like you've done everything else in my entire life over
I
the
think
past
we've done a
15
pretty
years.
good job. It's
You've
not
done
our
an
fault
okay
that you're so
job.
late. It's
I mean,
so
what's-
hard to filter.
The biggest surprise spoiler that I caused for Tim was when I said that Henry Cavill's character died at the end of Mission Impossible 6.
Yeah,
And he
yeah.
was
What
like,
the fuck?
"Oh, you spoiled it." I'm like,
Cool, I didn't wanna
that
go
movie's
see-
been out for like a long time.
That's like saying I was at work the other day and someone said, "What's in the box?" And I was like, "What do you mean?" You're like, "Oh, well, Brad Pitt's wife's head's in the end of 7." Like, oh
What
no,
the fuck did you
spoiled.
just say to me? I was just about to watch 7 for the. No, I'm kidding.
No, you
Okay.
weren't. It's on the blacklist items because it has Kevin Spacey in it. You're not allowed to watch those anymore. Those are the rules.
Ooh, do you believe in blacklist items?
No.
Michael Jackson's still king to me.
Ew.
I know.
King of
I don't.
I
King
never
of
liked
BBs?
Michael Jackson, to be honest. Like,
I
I
don't
mean,
know
of
what
course,
it is.
like Thriller and stuff, I guess, but like, I never.
You mean to tell me you've never been at work and just needed to like get in the zone And
No.
so you throw in bad
No.
and you put on one white glove and grab
No.
yourself
No.
and squeeze and
No.
just focus in and get some shit done.
No.
You haven't
No.
lived. You haven't lived.
Yeah. I guess
So
I'll just take you at your word.
So real quick, what's better, the final season of Game of Thrones or the first season of Witcher?
Oh, first season of Witcher, easy. And I'm a person who didn't mind the last season of Game of Thrones.
I didn't mind it, but they also broke my heart. Right, some of the stuff that people hated, Daenerys' turn, I'm okay with that ultimately. I actually kind of called that going into it. I don't know if you guys remember, Clayton. I think you and I were talking about it. I'm like, it's going to be hilarious if the person who's supposed to save the planet ends up becoming this just disgusting villain. And that's kind of what ultimately happened.
Yeah.
But what was heartbreaking to me is I'm watching the first episode of Witcher, which, to be completely transparent, I had no idea what was freaking going on. Okay. I never played the video games. I haven't read the books. So I'm kind of lost.
That is something that I've seen online. I'm familiar with the lore from kind of deep diving with the third game. But I have seen that if you're new to the universe, if you haven't read the books, if you haven't read, like this first season is based on the short stories that were first written back in like 1980. Or if you haven't played the games, that you are kind of lost. So unfortunately, I can't relate to that, but it sounds like that's what you're expressing now. So
yeah. I mean, they don't explain the hierarchy through the first half of the season at all. So you get all these different sects, and I have no idea what's going on with them, and I don't know what the timeline is. But
the timeline is the biggest thing that they could have at least, like, for me, that's inexcusable. Like, there's no reason why you couldn't have had something somewhere to show me that these are 3 different timelines.
Yeah, you guys showed me mercy by telling me that yesterday.
It would have made me feel more invested in both Yennefer and Ciri.
I think they wanted it to be like a twist or an aha moment, because I remember whatever episode it was, 5 or 6, where I was finally like, oh, this is what's going on. Now
the problem with that, though, is that you're 5 or 6 in.
No, I mean, I completely agree. I'm just saying that that's what they were going for. And
yeah, that's kind of the strong point there, Corbin, is like every episode's a solid hour. No fluff. You have to be invested paying attention for that solid hour, or you have no idea what's going on. And I don't know how many people are willing to sacrifice 5-6 hours.
Well, apparently like more than Mandalorian.
I was talking to someone recently about how Mandalorian has like stirred conversation about how we don't need bingeable shows anymore. We can release weekly and it's okay. And my counterpoint was, I think what it's shown is how crucial it is for the quality of the show. So The Mandalorian is able to exist week to week and create a cultural movement online of hype because it's so good and so engaging. But if a show like The Witcher were to come out and was released week to week, nah, man, I would have dropped out episode 2.
Yeah,
but here's another really important thing. The Mandalorian storyline was incredibly simplistic. Now, as you get towards the later episodes, there's some cool lore that they call up that Star Wars junkies absolutely devoured, right? But for an average Star Wars fan, the storyline was simple enough that week to week was okay. You could go through and get that quick 1 or 2 minute refresher before and pick it right up. The Witchers, there's just so many moving pieces at all times that week break really kills it. And that's something that I felt about Game of Thrones as well, is it was really easy during the most important years of Game of Thrones to absolutely get lost in the season. And maybe that's why Game of Thrones got so popular, was because it was good enough that people would go through and instantly binge it again as soon as it was done. So it just created this machine where people were just totally engaged and totally in on Game of Thrones. And you fast forward to the last season, and I'm okay with the twists. Okay, I'm even okay with Jon Snow not loving Ghost and just sending him off into the wild,
Whoa!
right? Everybody hated him for this.
Whoa! Whoa! No!
You know what? You got to do what you got to do, man. But here's two sins that you can't commit. Okay, you can't have the Battle for Winterfell be something I can't even freaking see. Okay, like it happens at night and I can't see anything.
Everybody was complaining about that. I didn't. I could see just fine. I don't understand. Maybe my brightness is turned up or something. But
Listen, the problem is that when they allow you to see what's happening, there are Starbucks cups, there's planes in the sky. Like, their editing department, they ain't got time for that shit. They got to turn the darkness down so you can't pick apart what's going on.
And you guys have to admit, Clayton, you have to admit, Corbin, cover your ears. This is a huge spoiler. Okay, we just talked about spoilers. I'm going to at least show you the common decency to tell you. You have to admit, it's a smack in the face to have the series' big bad that ultimately unites the entire kingdom ultimately do nothing. I mean, what did the Night King do? He got a dragon, and that was it. He didn't really kill anybody. He didn't tear anything apart. And he died like instantly.
I don't know if I agree with that, but I don't know if this is the place to get into it.
oh man.
Maybe
Ouch.
We need to
be continued.
Yeah, to be continued, because I think that's a great question, and I don't know if I agree with it, and I think it deserves a proper deep dive.
So in Roundup, what Tim's been up to is realization that when you become 75, 80 years old, you can go to the gym, do whatever you want. He thinks that The Witcher is okay. I learned that Jon Snow white fangs his doggo. I'm snipping these tangents. We got to get on track, yo.
Yeah. Okay. So other things I've been up to, I read a ton.
Oh, you're going to talk more? I think
I'm going to keep
time, sir. You are one-third of the Nerdosphere, which means you get a third of the time.
I'm the whole time. I'm the new nerd, so I get as much time as I want. Thank you very much. I read a ton. Okay, I'm a big Stephen King fan, so I've been diving into some of his kids' books at this point. So I've gone through pretty much all of the Stephen King books I want to. So I just finished Strange Weather by Joe Hill, which is an incredible book. It's filled with short stories. So if you guys are looking for something that's easy to read and digest, check out Strange Weather. Yeah, and then video games. I haven't played video games in a long time, and then I took this huge gamble. My wife and I had our 9-year anniversary in September. I was about to buy her this really beautiful gold diamond necklace. I don't know, some shit that I didn't really want to buy, but I thought she would love. But then sitting right next to the jewelry store was a GameStop, and they had a Switch just right there in the window. And I was like, the Switch is like the same price as this gold necklace. I don't know what to do.
And then there was the text heard round the world.
There was the text heard round the world where I called Clayton. I'm like, I don't know anything about a Switch. Tell me what I need to know.
I think you actually called me, didn't you?
We talked. Talked. I maybe owe you a sexual favor or two for the urgency. A Talus always pays its debts. Right? Yeah. Game of Thrones callback. So I ended up buying a Switch, and I've had a blast playing through that. I think one of my all-time favorite video games I just wrapped up, and that was Mario Odyssey. So super simple. It just made me. I loved it. It's super simple. Like seriously, like an 8-year-old could beat this game. So if you're looking for a challenging game, that ain't it. But if you're looking for a game that is just relaxing, like you just want to do something to get your mind off your day, and if you were like me and grew up with a Nintendo 64 and Mario 64 was life for a while, then this is a great game. So yeah, that's what I've been up to lately.
All right. Well, Corbin, why don't you regale us with what you have been up to recently?
Yes. Get comfortable, because I intend to make use of my time here. Well, for starters, I've seen many movies. I've watched many shows. I've played many games. Read very little. And I wish you were colder. Pretty much it, yo.
All right.
Riveting.
Good job.
What's the best movie, the best game, and the best show that you've seen recently?
Well, to be quite honest, I kept a lot of this vague because in our best of 2019, that's realistically where I'm going to be talking about what I've been up to for the past year, because that's what I'm going to talk about, my favorite movies.
Give us a tease.
Okay. I'll
Little strip tease.
I'll tease you, baby. Okay, so I would say favorite movie of 2019, Jojo Rabbit. Jojo Rabbit is my favorite movie of 2019. My favorite game of 2019 is going to be Jedi: The Fallen Order.
Okay.
And then favorite show of 2019 is Chernobyl.
Okay.
So
I'm going to have to think of some asshole remarks about all three of those things. And it's going to be hard because I haven't seen Jojo Rabbit, but Chernobyl was great. Star Wars game, great.
Yep.
But I will die on this
taste.
hill of making you like an enemy because you just stomped on me for taking an extra 45 seconds to go through what I've been doing lately. So it's been broad.
You think that was 45 seconds?
Yeah, only 45 seconds, Corbin.
What?
It was only 45 seconds.
No, you crazy. You crazy.
The man can't even take 45 seconds to introduce himself.
More like 45 minutes.
Like,
They don't even, everybody's
Who
already
are
forgot my name by now, Corbin.
yeah, because you took so long.
Crikey.
Hey, hang on now. I really have nothing to say here. So let's continue along, please, to what Clayton's been doing.
All right.
Clayton, what you been up to, boo?
I have been up to lots of things. Most notably, I got Link's Awakening for Christmas, the new remake of the old classic for the Switch.
Nice.
And that is literally what I did for 5 straight days after Christmas Eve. The boys all went down to their grandma's in Branson, so me and the wife were at home by ourselves, and we literally just played. She watched me play that game, and I played it, beat it, 100% it. Now I'm done with it. So,
wow.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to absorb this. I mean, you don't have the kid for 5 days, and the only thing you could think about was playing a video game.
Yeah.
I could think of one thing that might have been more fun, but you do you.
I mean, not saying that didn't happen.
It didn't.
It didn't.
I didn't say it.
Nah.
So Link's Awakening, it's well done. It's worth the time, huh?
Oh man, first of all, it's gorgeous. The new art style is just phenomenal. It's cute. It sucks you in. And there's something about those old Zelda games, the top down, explore. You can only go to certain areas after you've, found some secret somewhere that gives you a boomerang, or after you found the power bracelet or something. I got so hyped, and this is a testament to how good those old games are. I got so hyped up on Zelda that I bought the DLC packs for Breath of the Wild, which I had previously never gotten. And I was like, I'm going to get these and keep playing Zelda. And I turned on Breath of the Wild, and it just didn't scratch the same itch. I literally played it for an hour and then turned it off and haven't been back to it. So, but yeah, if you're a fan of Zelda, and if you're a fan of old school Zelda especially, that game is a must play. Like, it's very good.
So I still haven't played Breath of the Wild, and the main reason is because I hear it's massive.
It is massive.
And for somebody who has just like limited time to watch movies, get caught up on TV, play video games, it was intimidating. Like, I was reading quick reviews from people, and they're like, played it for 40 hours, still not done. And like, that's awesome. Like, old Tim Tallis would have been all over that, but now,
it's also a kind of a game that you can play your own way. Like, you can go to like the final bosses from the get-go. I mean, you can't defeat them, obviously, but like, it's definitely a game where you kind of carve out how you think it should be played.
Okay.
Yeah, it is vast. It's more in vein of the original Zelda, where you can kind of go where you want, when you want. You can tackle the different like temples and stuff in whatever order you want. There are some areas that you can't go to until you get like certain stuff, but for the most part, you can play it the way you want it. for how massive it is and how long it can be, it doesn't have to be that long because you don't have to do all the little side quests. You don't have to do all the shrines to beat it. But it's very approachable in the sense that you can do little pieces at a time. It's not like Skyrim where if you take a couple week break and you come back and you completely forget what you're doing and you have to start the whole game over.
True story. That happened to me playing Resident Evil 2.
That happened to me playing The Witcher 4 different times. I'm playing it right now for the first time consecutively for like 2 weeks. And anytime I save my file, I'm reminded of all the other saves. And like my first save was like from 2015, which blows my mind. Mm-hmm. The Witcher 3's like been out that long.
That happened to me with Fallout 4. I dove head deep into that when that first came out. I was like, I'm going to platinum this thing. And I was doing things specifically to platinum it. And when I signed back on, I was like, I have no idea what this is. So I deleted it and sold it.
Yeah, I even had like the special edition where you have the Pip-Boy on the arm. Like I was all in. And I never finished it.
Yeah, me either.
Story of your life.
A little too close to home there, bro.
But as Corbin alluded, I have also seen many a movie and many a show as well. Most recently, I saw Frozen 2, which I was skeptical about, but it was phenomenal, and I can't stop listening to the soundtrack. And I love it. I love it.
You've left me alone on this hill.
I love it.
Can you say that one more time?
I love it. I can't stop listening to the soundtrack.
We've had this debate, for everybody who doesn't know, we've had this debate for at least 5 years now. Right. Essentially since Frozen came out. Right? It's
well,
which
Frozen
one's better?
One is it, and I will die on that.
Is it Tangled or is it Frozen? Right?
Tangled is better.
Frozen's better.
No,
and I love Tangled. I took my daughter trick or treating as Rapunzel this year. Love Tangled.
You were Rapunzel?
No, wow. She was Rapunzel. I was going to be Flynn Rider, but it's kind of hard to dress up as Flynn Rider. And my oldest said she wanted Rey from Star Wars, which we're going to transition to here in a minute. And I couldn't pass up the opportunity to dress up as Kylo. So that was a no-brainer for me. But I would have definitely dressed up as Flynn. But man, Frozen was better in my opinion. But more importantly than that, Frozen 2 is just an astronomical leap in quality.
Yeah, very good. And then significant show I watched recently was Lost in Space Season 2, which if you guys aren't watching Lost in Space, get on that. Because that is a anxiety junkie's dream.
Palm sweaty, arm spaghetti, your mom spaghetti. It is a riot. Bring the Xanax.
All right. Let's jump in and talk about some news.
So first on the docket, I want to talk about Disney Plus. There's a few things to discuss. First of all, now that Mandalorian is over, we're all kind of salivating of what is the next like true content. Because while we love watching Brink, we love watching Luck of the Irish, or Don't Look Under the Bed, we are looking for the next new content. And we got some great news. Kevin Feige recently came out and said, while it was originally announced that WandaVision would be coming out in 2021, it's actually coming out in fall of 2020, which is huge news. Along with WandaVision, we have some potential script leaks, which is causing the rumor mill to spill their salt on the audition scripts for what appears to be Wanda's kids. There is dialogue numerous times mentioning their uncle, which means we could be receiving Quicksilver in WandaVision despite them declining to comment on such matters, which would be the dopest.
Dude, bring back Pietro.
In other Disney Plus rumors, Obi-Wan Kenobi, the series, is looking to cast a young Luke Skywalker, and curious enough, Leia Organa.
What?
Yeah, which is particularly strange because I really don't see how his adventure would really take him off of Tatooine.
Well, yeah, it's kind of been insinuated for the last 42 years that he stayed on Tatooine and watched over Luke. So it'd be interesting to see what they do there. Unless they're going to, inside the Obi-Wan banner, are they going to split time between Luke and Leia and show like half the show is going to be Obi-Wan and Luke related, and half the show's going to be Leia related.
I just don't see how the Organas are going to be interesting.
Bail is very interesting.
I could see maybe them wanting to do that so we get more on the back end, some more investment on Alderaan. One of those like contextual pieces or texturizing pieces where when you go back and watch A New Hope, certain things will mean more. Because they even talk about how Rebel Trooper gal from Mandalorian is from Alderaan. So maybe spending time with Leia would mean that when you go back and watch A New Hope, maybe maybe when they go back and we see A New Hope, maybe like the destruction of Alderaan might even like mean a little bit more because we spent time like on the planet.
Yeah. Okay.
So could be. The last little bit of Disney Plus is a lot of people noticed right after the holidays, some stuff started to be taken off the streaming service. We saw Home Alone 2, Dr. Dolittle, Pirates of the Caribbean on Stranger Tides, and The Sandlot were immediately taken off. We're not shy to Disney using a vaulting process. However, I think a lot of people assumed that with the streaming service, we either wouldn't see that quite the same way, or at least this soon since the platform launched. And also appears that movies that are on Disney Plus can leave as their rights change hands and their contracts dictate so. So, for instance, Bloomberg stated that Black Panther in 2026 would go back to Netflix and be leaving Disney Plus, which is very interesting.
I kind of thought that was the reason behind it, like something to leave so soon. Maybe Sandlot already had a deal where it was going to go on some other service, and they only had a certain amount of time to put it on there. The Home Alones, I can understand rotating holiday movies in and out, so that didn't really alarm me. It is a little weird to me that the unspoken benefit to Disney Plus seemed to be we're finally going to have one place where we can watch like all of these Disney movies and shows. And because like, what does that mean for, I'm expecting like Marvel movies to be on there forever, so I don't ever have to buy a Marvel movie again. Like I'm expecting Frozen 2 and Toy Story 4 to be on there at some point in the near future, so I don't have to buy those for my kids for their birthday. You know what I mean?
Right.
So it's a little...
and I guess like for me as a consumer, the thing that it just like irritates me is The Mandalorian aside, the only thing that Disney Plus offers me is the vast quantity of content. Yeah. Because they didn't launch the platform with a lot of unique originals. You know, it was just Jeff Goldblum, which is hilarious, and The Mandalorian, which is some of the best Star Wars content we've ever seen. However, like I said, WandaVision got pushed up to be in fall of 2020, and we are going to get Mandalorian season 2 in fall of 2020. There's a huge gap of time where there's not a whole lot to watch. And while it's fun to go down memory lane on the Disney original movies from the Disney Channel, I mean, that's not like quality. You know what I mean? It's just like mild nostalgia.
I will say that if it hadn't quickly become my kids' like go-to app, it definitely wouldn't have a whole lot of value for me. Like I could see for someone in your position, Corbin, where it's just you, like you don't have any kids, that it probably doesn't seem as appealing right now. But for people like me and Tim, like Tim, I don't know if your girls are the same way, but like my boys, that's all they watch now is Disney Plus. So
it's super annoying because my kids only watch Jessie, which is this Disney original show with this super catchy song, but it's just non-stop every morning when they get home from school. Hey, can we watch Jessie? So I'm a little burnt out from it. I was okay with them taking things off of the site. I kind of expected it to feel like Netflix, where you'd see content come and go. What I didn't really like, and maybe this was out there and I just completely missed it. It felt like you woke up one day and stuff was gone and nobody knew it was leaving. And I think that's something
that's very true.
Other streaming services have done a good job at, is setting expectations and saying like, hey, here's what's leaving this month.
Yeah, they're very open. And there's articles from all the major outlets every month. This is what's coming to Netflix this month. This is what's leaving. This is what's coming to Amazon this month. This is what's leaving. So,
and maybe that's why it has such a bad taste in my mouth, because every article, honestly, that came out when it was found out was in the vein of like, almost like we've been done dirty, right? Like we've been sold a product and now they're changing the terms of use without telling us. And I guess like, I was just like, wait, what? Like, cause I had planned on watching Home Alone. I didn't take the time to watch during the holiday season, but I was going to watch it soonish, and now I can't. And I'm like, well, if I had known that I was going to leave on a specific date, then I would have taken my sweet time. I would have made time for it.
It'll be interesting to see if Disney learns from their mistake and starts advertising what's leaving, because if anybody follows Disney Plus on social media, they're doing a really good job of saying, hey, here's everything that's new this month or this week. But they haven't done a great job of setting expectations and letting people know here's what's leaving next month. So hopefully they've learned from their mistake and they're going to be a bit more forthcoming with what's leaving so that we can be a little more strategic and, prioritize what we watch.
Yeah,
exactly.
So the last two pieces of news that I have are, one, it is a little bit rumory, so take it with a grain of salt, but it is very interesting nonetheless. And that is, it is rumored that Marvel may have quietly got back the distribution rights from Universal for both the Hulk and Namor. And for those who are uninitiated or do not know, the biggest reason we haven't seen a Hulk movie post Disney's acquisition is because Universal holds the distribution rights for the character. So Disney can use the character in any of their films. However, in order to make a solo film, they would have to strike some sort of deal with Universal or just concede that majority of the profits would go to Universal, even though they foot the bill to make the film. And Namor was also one of those characters where it was very complicated, where both Fox owned most of the rights for him, but Universal also owned distribution rights for him. And them Disney buying back Fox definitely cleared up the waters, pun intended, for Namor. But there is still some lingering, strange back-issued contracts that I think will more than likely make Namor either a villain or a companion character in a future film soonish. But we probably won't see a solo film on his.
Do you think they'll use him to introduce the mutants?
I feel like they definitely could. I would like to see that. I know people are like saying that they think it's rumored that he could be a villain in Black Panther, but to give credit to certain rumors, I would rather follow the breadcrumbs that the Doctor Doom rumor is more accurate, because I think that having Doctor Doom be the villain to Wakanda would be kind of dope. Be, Latvia versus Wakanda would be pretty sweet.
That would be cool. It'd also be a great backdoor into the Fantastic Four.
And with the Hulk, what's interesting there is Kevin Feige has asked Ruffalo to appear in the She-Hulk show. So a Hulk movie doesn't even necessarily mean just Bruce. It could be, Bruce and his cousin and whatever hijinks they want to talk about, Yeah. And that, I'm going to be honest,
I don't think that we need a Hulk movie. Like, do we think that we need a Hulk movie? Like, what are your guys' thoughts on that?
Only if it has Ed Norton in it. I'm going to put that out there. Is that
now Edward Norton has
mistake.
Come out to say that he is game to return to the Marvel Cinematic Universe as a villain. So it can be more of like a one and done role. But the bad blood seems to have subsided. And in a recent interview, he did say that he would love to jump into the MCU. And he jokingly said that possibly as a villain, so he wouldn't have to commit so much time.
Yeah.
And the last thing is more Martin Scorsese. So, Martin Scorsese definitely kind of flustered the nerds by comparing the MCU to theme park rides. But he also recently came out and said that he had no intention on seeing the Joker. He said that he saw clips of it and then said, I know it. So it's like, why do I need to? I get it. It's fine. Which is very interesting because the Joker is such a deep character study and examination of mental health issues. Like, it's a very movingly disturbing film and is not at all, which goes to show his ignorance. If he's just willing to see something that is loosely based off a comic book and just write it off, it goes to show that he's so stuck in his ways that he can't even appreciate true art when it's before him.
That is the pot calling the kettle black, because I sat down and watched 3+ hours of The Irishman, and I could tell you 15 minutes in that I knew it, because he already made this movie and other people have already made this movie. You haven't seen The Irishman and you've seen Goodfellas. Guess what? It's not that different. It's a different spin. There's interesting takes on it. I'm not saying The Irishman isn't worth your time. I think The Irishman was really well done. It was great seeing these characters get back together. It was great seeing Joe Pesci finally back on screen. But if you've seen Goodfellas, you've seen The Irishman for the most part.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, in all honesty, that wraps up my news roundup.
We do need to get you some like fancy music for this skit.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll get him some nice music.
Yeah, give me something nice. Give me something nice. I haven't had anything nice in a long time.
Was that Jar Jar Binks? Dear God, I hope not.
Speaking of Jar Jar Binks, let's jump into our main topic. Today's main topic is going to be a discussion of Rise of Skywalker and generally a review on the movie. Since we're running so long, I don't want to get too deep into the weeds as far as box office numbers. I think the main thing to talk about here is the comparison between the other movies, just because I think that that's interesting.
True.
It is tracking well behind the others, which is unfortunate. After 10 days, it had almost caught up to The Last Jedi's 10-day total. It was only like a couple tens of thousands of dollars off, but now it is tapered back off again. So it's not making the money. That's not good for Star Wars. It also is still a divisive movie, although not nearly as divisive as The Last Jedi. According to Rotten Tomatoes, it has the same audience score as The Force Awakens. Now, critics tore it apart. But I saw most of that is from they thought there was too much fan service in the film. And I'm sure we'll get into this, but they kind of had to do some of that. So
well, and like when I see the critics not like it, I immediately think to the huge gap in response on Rotten Tomatoes to the critics versus the fans, and how the critics loved The Last Jedi. So I could see from their perspective what they liked about The Last Jedi is what made it so divisive amongst fans. So the fact that this movie continued to not necessarily like, I don't want to say subvert the genre, because that almost sounds like I'm giving credit to The Last Jedi, which I hate. But it didn't like, it was more of a Star Wars movie than The Last Jedi. So the critics then were like, oh no. Like,
well,
I don't like this.
To put it in perspective, and I didn't know this until I actually pulled this up. I'm sure we talked about it back when we talked about it. But the critics have a 93% on Rotten Tomatoes for The Force Awakens, which is even higher than The Last Jedi.
It's kind of incredible considering The Force Awakens is essentially a reboot of A New Hope.
Yeah.
Like, I would think the critics would not be into that movie. I think they would objectively say there's nothing significantly new here.
Right.
And
right.
It's incredibly well done. The action's great. It built a great foundation for the series going forward, but did it move the series? And I think you could look at that and argue that it really didn't. So I'm surprised to hear that the critics were so into it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I guess what I would like to do before we get in the weeds of dissecting the film is I would like to just go one by one on what our general impression of the film was.
Yeah, let's do it.
So, yeah. So for me, I already knew walking out of the theater that I was going to enjoy this movie more the second time, because certain things that maybe like caught me off guard, I would see it coming and I would be able to maybe get past it. And it was for me also clear that one, JJ had an impossible job, because The Last Jedi was a film that didn't move the story anywhere. So he had to not only end a trilogy, he had to end a saga, but he had to do it in one movie, but make up ground for a wasted movie. So there was so much working against him. And I knew that he wanted to make it fun. So you could tell that he wanted to make like a high octane film. But, and it was packed. It felt like it needed to be 2 movies. There was a lot of great lore sprinkled in that was happening really fast. And if we had the time to like pick it apart and really like let it breathe, I think it would have been really sweet. So ultimately, I was happy with the movie given the circumstances, but I'm upset because this trilogy was not planned. It's clear it was not planned, and too many mistakes were made along the way. So those are my thoughts.
Good thoughts.
I think I'm in the middle. I think you get some of the series' best action in this movie. It's beautiful to look at, especially when you get to the scenes where they're in the ocean. I thought that was just incredibly well done. I think it was gimmicky at times that they, in order to move the story along quickly, because like you said, Corbin, it felt like it should have been 2 movies, but in order to have things click, they used gimmicks to get characters together. Like all of a sudden they're doing things through the Force that we've never seen anybody else do. And there were times where I was questioning what I was seeing on screen, where I'm like, is Kylo really here? Or is this one of those weird Force things where they're connected and you don't know if they're in the same room or not? So I kind of had a problem with that. I thought it was probably the most confusing Star Wars movie that I've seen, which I don't necessarily hate, but given that the overall feel for the movie is high octane thriller, I would have liked it to be maybe slightly more simplistic in the story. I think it was, like you said, I think JJ did the best he could with what he was left. So overall, am I satisfied? I would say yes. I'm dissatisfied with how Disney handled the trilogy in general.
Yeah.
Okay. So my thoughts. They're complicated.
Remember, don't get too much in the weeds. We'll dissect.
I know. Sitting through the movie, I couldn't help but pick apart everything. There was a lot that I liked about it. There was just as much, if not more, that I didn't like about it. When I came out of the movie, though, I had the weirdest feeling I've ever had coming out of a movie, especially a Star Wars movie. I had literally no feelings. I was like, I don't even know how to describe it. I was like, I don't know. I was in this weird state of I don't really feel anything towards this movie. It wasn't until I saw it a second time that I actually ended up enjoying it quite a lot, seeing it the second time, because I wasn't so invested in it. It already, all the issues that I had with it, I could let kind of wash through the situation, I guess. If we're going off like first impressions, it wasn't a good first impression. I didn't walk out like Last Jedi. I walked out and I was like, this is the dumbest fucking movie I've ever seen in my life. But yeah, that's kind of where I was at. Ultimately, I really kind of think that he did the best. I mean, we've all three said it now. JJ did the best that he could with what he had. I think that there were a lot of things that were way too convenient, and then other things that were way overthought. But Tim hit the nail on the head when he said that some of the best actions in this movie. I love all the saber fights. It's enthralling. And I love Kylo in this movie, and I love Rey. It's a real shame that they were kind of done dirty in the second one, and now we never get to see them again. So,
allegedly,
yeah.
While the Skywalker saga is over, doesn't necessarily mean that we can't get more of Rey later down the line.
But she's a Skywalker
by adopted name. You know what they mean when they say Skywalker saga. They're talking about the airtight lineage.
I don't know.
I'm just saying that if they want to have Rey later, that's the out.
I
don't know. So, like, for me, some of the elements I liked and I wished could have been, again, better fleshed out was like, there are things that, because of the movie, yes, they were gimmicks and they were very convenient MacGuffins. But things like the Wayfinder and the dagger being a map and how like it aligned with the ruins and stuff, like, in all honesty,
that was dumb.
But for me, that lines up with like Star Wars lore. Like the Wayfinder It reminded me of Sith holocrons, like that sort of technology. Like, I think that if it were in a comic book or a book, people wouldn't have thought twice about it because Luke, it's already been introduced, and it was in the Battlefront 2 campaign years before this, but he found in the Emperor's vault a rare Jedi compass, and that's how he found Octo. And it was the Jedi Wayfinder, essentially.
Yeah, but that was made long time ago to find a place that's been around for thousands, if not tens of thousands of years. This was a Sith dagger, and they throw the word Sith around in this movie like it's fucking candy, and it pisses me off.
It's like it's like quantum mechanics.
Yeah, it's like old school Marvel explaining science by throwing quantum in front of it. Everything's Sith this, Sith that. So we're talking about a Sith dagger that's 30 years old, designed to lead you to the ruins of the second Death Star, which happened, I think, like 40 years ago in this point, something like that.
Yeah.
It's just silly. And because the Sith, you want to talk, here's the inconsistency. Star Wars builds the Jedi up as some myth, even though they've only been gone so they're already a myth when A New Hope comes around. They've only been gone for, 30 years, 40 years?
Yeah.
And now they're legendary, legend, or, myth moves into legend or whatever it is in this new trilogy. But the Sith is like so commonplace that it's in front of all these different names. Like we've got this dude working for Palpatine who's a Jedi hunter, which how easy could that have just been an Inquisitor?
True.
We've got Inquisitors being sprinkled all throughout the canon now, and there was a perfect opportunity to put them in a movie. It could have been really cool.
Actually, you're right.
But that's neither here nor there. So we've got this guy who has a Sith dagger somehow, and he I guess created it or grinded it or something to fit and take you to the Death Star's ruins. When if the Jedi are supposed to be myths, then the Sith, like, nobody should know about Sith. Nobody should know about Sith.
That's true, because in episode 1, when Darth Maul appears, the Jedi Council is acting like this is the first Sith that's been seen in a long time. And that's when they're like, there has to be two, because when one reveals itself, there's a second one. So that even means that, like, honestly, Darth Sidious and Darth Plagueis, they were under the radar.
Yeah. But so this is one of the overthinking parts that I was alluding to when I talked a minute ago. They could have just as easily left this part out. You had the old Jedi texts, you had Luke's research from Search and Before. You could have just replaced the dagger with just replace all that with the Wayfinder. Like that was just an extra step that you didn't need. Or the clue could have just been it's in the Emperor's throne room. Like that's the last place.
That's true too.
Like why do we need some mysterious dagger?
That's true. And actually, with it being more simple, it probably would have resonated even deeper, being like it's, it doesn't even have to be even that plain. It could be a riddle alluding to the fact that it's like in the Emperor's treasure vault or something. And then like true fans are like, oh, they're going to go back to the Death Star. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So. But I went off on a long tangent. I don't really remember what you were talking about. So sorry about that.
Well, no, that whole conversation was just like the MacGuffin element of the movie, which were the Wayfinders in their place in the movie.
Yeah. Speaking of which, I didn't realize this till I was reading after the fact situations, but where Kylo finds his is
don't say you didn't know. On this podcast, do not say you did not know that was Mustafar.
He's in the woods.
They show the planet before we go on. We've seen,
but then he's in the woods,
times. Dude. No,
Mustafar is a lava planet, and he's in woods. So I didn't know. I knew
it was Mustafar, but it would have been.
You should have went to Vader's castle.
I was gonna say it would have been a better opportunity to go to Vader's castle, because the key designer behind Vader's castle was explicitly instructed to like over design it, because they had planned to visit it again after Rogue One. which always led me to believe that we would see Kylo go there. And I'm so mad that we never saw Kylo go
Well,
there.
I always thought that would mean a Vader show, which would be even better.
True.
The fact that Kylo doesn't go to Vader's castle's a huge disappointment, though, right? I mean, like, you've got all of these callbacks to him, and it's what ultimately defined his character, for better or for worse, is he's pulled to Vader. And all you ever see him really explore is the destroyed mask, right? Like, you would think if that's your idol and you're keeping his mask around and you're seeking to do what he did, and you have all these tools at your disposal, that you're using them more to just look at his beat up mask.
Not to mention that, like, we know that, I don't know if it's necessarily a Sith temple, but beyond Vader's castle beyond Mustafar is like a reminder of like, this is where he was born. It was built over a dark side hotspot, essentially. And so what better way to like have a lost Kylo trying to realign with his grandfather? And if you want to have Palpatine's, like, I've been talking to you this whole time shtick be the thing, like, he could have had such a huge presence in that moment when he goes like the dark side hotspot and like he's able to like talk to him clearly or whatever. You know what I mean?
Wouldn't you ultimately think you would need to go there if you're Kylo after The Last Jedi because of what happens with Luke? Right? Like, you're chasing after Vader this whole time, and then you have this massive showdown with Luke where you get completely schooled through the Force, where you're probably assuming, outside of Snoke at this point, I'm the man when it comes to the Force, right?
Mm-hmm.
And here's Rey, and she's dangerous, and if she figures it out, I'm in trouble, but I can still manipulate that and make that mine. And then here comes Luke doing things that Kylo can't even conceive.
Yeah.
Wouldn't you think, like, at that point, you're doing everything you can to understand more about Vader, knowing that Vader essentially schooled Luke through the Force, through the entire movie, the entire series? It's just interesting to me that he doesn't go down that path in this movie.
Yeah, it is strange.
And honestly, while we're on Kylo, I was of the camp that I never wanted Kylo to be redeemed because he had viewed the dark side and light side in a very unique way. You know, he didn't see it as succumbing to the dark side. He saw it as like, I'm being tempted to succumb to the light side, which is like, it's so cool. But I will say they obviously had a challenge with Carrie Fisher and stuff not being alive when they made this movie. But if they were to write off her death as a way to redeem him, it kind of made it feel okay. And honestly, like, Adam Driver is such a great actor that when you immediately see him switch to being Ben, I kind of got like excited. And it made me upset that he died because I wanted more Ben.
Yeah, I completely agree. I'm the same way, and we've had many conversations in the past, I know, but the way that he's introduced to us just had so much potential with him being like the big bad of this trilogy, and I didn't want him to be redeemed. But at the end of this movie, I was glad that he did. And you're right about Adam Driver. He's such a good actor that when that button does switch, like, you just know, just by looking at him, the way he stands, the way he moves, I don't know, just something, you just know he's not Kylo anymore. He's Ben.
Yeah.
I mean, given the future of Star Wars, and, you know, from all accounts, this trilogy's done. We're not going to see any of these characters in a significant light moving forward, or at least that's kind of what we're led to believe for now.
Yeah.
Given what they did at the end, I would have much rather have seen Rey be the one that ends up being the sacrificial lamb versus Kylo, because I think Kylo builds a more interesting arc in the future if you need to go back to it.
Yeah, I actually completely agree. I thought the same thing walking out of the movie when I first saw it. I was like, man, it just should have been the other way. Because that was...
I mean, if you're going to take Kylo and have him be the hero moving forward, his story is so much more defined at this point, and his reason for being completely engulfed by the good side, right, is, I mean, it's solid at this point. Like, you can look at him and say he was the series' big bad who changed so much that the person who he vowed to kill died for him and built him up. You know, so like, just, I feel like that's such an intriguing storyline that they could have chased after this one. But, for some reason, we get this very narrow-minded idea of what Star Wars should be. And they say, hey, we're only going to do a trilogy, which I think kind of shoots the whole thing in the foot right out of the gate.
Yeah, I think that point right there just screams to the problem with this entire trilogy is just missed opportunities. Everywhere you look, there's missed opportunities.
If you want to take a $1 billion idea, a $1 billion franchise, and completely ruin it and waste its potential, all you have to do is look and see how Disney handled the past 3 movies. Everything about it screams terrible business decisions. Yep. Okay, you have lack of continuity between who's actually in charge of directing all 3 films. You feel like I felt like when I see what's going on with directors, and I think the story that I remember was, Disney wants the up and coming director. They want the hot director for each one of these movies so that the movies keep up with the times.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Well, no, what you're essentially doing is saying Disney's willing to play $1 billion poker with a for sure moneymaker, right?
Roulette.
Like Disney comes up and they are the big badass on the block, and Star Wars is it. And you look at what they did with Marvel, you would think Disney would have had the sense to say, hey, if we're not going to follow the Marvel blueprint to a T, and we're going to stick with the trilogy for some unseen reason, you'd think they would have said, hey, you're signing on for 3, or we're moving on to the next director, the next writer, the next whatever. Take it or leave it. And there's not a director out there that would have said no.
Yeah. Because ultimately, I think that we've all kind of said this at one point or another, but with this strategy, and I kind of equate it to, the DCEU and how it fell to shambles because of it. What you end up having without a roadmap, without a common writer, without a common consensus or a groupthink, you have each director coming out of the project understanding that they have a legacy on their shoulders, but ultimately they want to make the movie they want to make. And so the biggest example is The Last Jedi. Rian Johnson came in and was given complete creative freedom. He completely wrote it. Even JJ had Lawrence Kasdan on the first one, and he had Chris Terrario on the third one. But Rian Johnson did it all by himself and was given complete creative freedom. So he came in knowing, I have to follow up The Force Awakens, which essentially means this is where my story starts. But I don't have to necessarily respect anything that was in there. I get to do whatever I want. And at the end of the day, it's not my responsibility where the story goes in the next one, because I made the movie I wanted to make, and is completely disregarding the fact that there is a trilogy at stake.
This little part of me, this sadistic part of me, is laughing because, I feel like if you were to go grab a beer with Rian Johnson and say, what would you have done for the third one? And he was being completely honest, no filters. I think there's a chance that he maybe would have laughed and said, shit, I don't know. Where do you go after he left it? Right? What do you really do that could make arguably the most rabid fan base in the world satisfied when you've taken this, titular character over the course of, we're at 5 movies at this point. We're 5 movies deep where Luke Skywalker's a central character directly or indirectly. And you just kind of shit on his storyline. What do you think's going to happen? It's mind-blowing. It's mind-blowing to me that Disney looked at what he did and said, yep, I think we can go there. I think this makes sense.
Yeah.
Well, it's what he did that caused ultimately such a huge course correction. It was Bob Iger that wanted JJ back, not Kathleen Kennedy. Yeah. Not Kathleen Kennedy, who's essentially the Feige of Lucasfilm. So he was the one that brought him back. And, obviously we can't really get into too many rumors, but we can pretty much say without a shadow of a doubt that they meddled too much. And anytime a studio as executives get their fingers in the cookie jar too much, it really muddies the water and ruins the final product every time.
Yeah, I mean, when I heard Star Wars was being revived and we have all these coming out, it just makes me take this huge step back and question, why didn't you try to follow more of the Marvel mode that's clearly working, right? Like, I understand not wanting to build a 25 movie arc that's all connected and how difficult that is. And it truly is difficult. It's amazing that Disney's been able to do that through Marvel. So I understand maybe not wanting to go that big. But you would have thought they would have said, we're really going to invest in some character development for a couple of movies, and then we're going to have the trilogy truly pick up. And I think that was a huge missed opportunity. There's a lot of money left on the table, and you could have ultimately built a significantly more satisfying story arc had you just invested in a couple of solo movies that really build up Kylo and Rey and some of these other characters.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think the biggest issue that they have is that they don't have a Kevin Feige. They should have had the foresight to know that Kathleen Kennedy wasn't the Kevin Feige they needed for Star Wars.
Right.
And they should have, it's okay that she's in charge of Lucasfilm, but as far as movies, they should have hired somebody like JJ should have been hired as the Kevin Feige or somebody,
or Filoni or someone.
Right, or Dave Filoni. Hell, Favreau could have done it. Now, knowing what he's done with Mandalorian, he understands Star Wars so well. But somebody needed, and somebody going forward needs to be in charge of where this is going. Like, you can have as many directors as you want. The MCU does it all the time.
Yeah. Well, even Kathleen Kennedy on a interview junket, but pre the release, was talking about the uphill battle it was to make this movie because they don't have the source material that Marvel does with the comics.
Yeah, she's so clueless.
And it's like, I'm not saying you have to adapt every storyline from what is now Legends, but there are so many great stories from the books that were once canon.
Yeah, there are decades worth of Lucas approved canon before Disney bought it stories that were all continuous, all made sense. They you couldn't just write a Star Wars book and it not fit. It had to be approved, and like you said, they didn't have to completely adapt everything, but there is plenty of material for inspiration out there. Plenty.
Yeah. We did at least get one movie that enhanced character development. It was Solo.
Shut up.
But seriously, I look at that and say, we have the money, we have the time, you have the slot. You're really going to use it on Solo? That's the character we're going to develop right now?
Well, something that Clayton, myself, and our friend Nick had talked about was after Rogue One, we really thought that the anthology films should have been films that were placed in a significant way that they uplifted the original trilogy in the way that after you see Rogue One, you immediately want to watch New Hope, and it adds context to New Hope, which makes it more enjoyable. And Clayton had the idea of when the Death Star blows up and Darth Vader's floating through space, how on earth does he go back to the Emperor and live? There's a story there.
Yeah, I agree. There's tons that you can do there. I think if I were to look back and say of the past 5 Star Wars movies, rank them. And I think I put Rogue One as my second favorite, which is a complete shock to me because going into Rogue One, I was the least excited about it, I think. But I mean, they did it the right way, and there's so much story that you could do by just going backward, developing what's happening between these movies, or what's happening with the Resistance and how it got started. That's really not all that well developed in the grand scheme of things.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
not in film, at least.
Before we, I wanted to change topics a little bit, but Clayton, did you have any other thoughts on that as far as missed opportunity with the anthology films and what they should have done, or maybe what they still can do moving forward?
I mean, not currently. I'm really just kind of anxious to see what they want to do. I'm in a point right now where when Force Awakens came out and Rogue One came out, I was full of they could do this. Oh man. Right now I'm kind of what are they going to do?
Yeah, well,
Like,
and rightfully so, because it was so botched. Like there are doors that are closed. You know what I mean?
Yeah, like if you had asked me that before I saw Rise of Skywalker, say I would love to see a solo Kylo film or show. I would still really like to see a Darth Vader, a solo Darth Vader movie or show. Obviously, Rey's story is not done. I really, really hope that we're not done with Rey. So, is that going to be a movie or is that going to be a show? And that kind of brings up something else. Does Star Wars belong on TV?
Yeah.
I mean, that's exactly what I was just going to say is I'm like the exact opposite of you. Like I'm super optimistic now, even though I'm pessimistic on what I think Star Wars can and will do in movie form. The Mandalorian's completely changed the game. We're going to have an episode next couple of weeks where we really break down the Mandalorian.
Mm-hmm.
But Jon Favreau seems to be the guy.
Yeah.
And what they've done through the Mandalorian kind of re-energized my love for Star Wars. And so while I'm disappointed with how this trilogy is and how Disney's ultimately handled Star Wars, I'm super optimistic to see the direction that they go. And I'm a firm believer, I think you guys are too, that Star Wars may be better off taking a break from movies for a while, really focusing on creating some high quality shows.
Yeah, I completely agree. And that was what they've said, but they have a slot set aside, don't they, Corbin, for 2021 sometime?
They do, yeah. And so I don't want to go too much in a tangent, but the rumors there is one, all the movies going forward for the next foreseeable future are going to be in the era of the High Republic, which is going to be cool. It's in the same era as the Knights of the Old Republic. Their idea moving forward is to actually make a Star Wars MCU where all the movies are in the era of the High Republic. Each movie that comes out is about specific characters, with in the background kind of dealing with the ancient Sith threat possibly, and possibly leading up to some sort of event film is what's been rumored, which is interesting.
I don't know if I like that.
The Old Republic for me is the coolest time in Star Wars, where the rule of two for the Sith has not been developed yet. So Sith, there are literally just legions of Sith out there. You have the Jedi, and you have the Mandalorians' presence fully known throughout the entire galaxy. They're not just on their home planet. They are kind of like a tyranny.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that it is ripe with material to do. And I would like to see it.
I mean, I completely agree. I don't like the sound of that approach.
No. And like I said, it's rumors. We don't have a whole lot. But Kathleen Kennedy has on numerous occasions in the past say that she wants the next Star Wars movies to be based on Knights of the Old Republic. So I think that's where maybe some credence is given to those rumors.
That also bugs me a little bit because if that's true, and obviously Kathleen Kennedy has alluded to that a little bit, but if that's true, that means that we're not going to continue any further past that point at the end of Rise of Skywalker. That bugs me.
Yeah, it's hard to say.
The Old Republic is cool. I love the KOTOR games, don't get me wrong. But I don't want to spend the rest of my Star Wars time there.
Right. It's funny, we came into this podcast wanting to initially review the Rise of Skywalker. And while the Rise of Skywalker was the end of a saga, it's funny that it's ultimately become a review of the saga. But the three things that I would really hate to not touch on is 1, Rey, 2, Leia, and 3, Finn. Those are the three things that I really want to make sure that we hit because I wanted to make sure I talked about it. So for me, when it comes to Rey, trying to be as open-minded as possible and realizing that for the same reasons why we're able to explain away Starkiller Base is Lucas talking about poetry and the symbolism of repeating. I initially felt and again, I kind of read these in the leaks early on, but I felt kind of disappointed that Rey was a Palpatine. And I think it's partly because it was a Hail Mary. It wasn't really planned, but trying to keep in mind of Lucas's mentality of his original plan of Star Wars being poetry and how history repeats itself. I can find myself seeing some cool symbolism in the fact that we do get a quote unquote shocking reveal of lineage, and that at the end, it's the grandchild of Vader and the grandchild of Palpatine that like are united, which I think is kind of cool. But man, I was kind of like, even though her lightning bit with the ship was pretty dope. But I don't know how you felt about that twist.
I didn't like it because I throw this into you're thinking too much. It would have been so much easier to just make her a Skywalker. And it actually would have made more sense with them being a dyad in the Force.
That they're siblings?
If they were separated siblings or separated twins. And it wouldn't have been that hard. It wouldn't have been any harder. In fact, it would have been easier to explain than her being a Palpatine. Because with the Palpatine, we're like, okay, so at some point he had to have got it on with somebody. For some reason, the kid like didn't like him, or he didn't take him under his, like, why wouldn't you take your kid under your wing and turn him into an asset? You know how Palpatine is.
Yeah.
And if Palpatine had somebody from the very moment of birth to manipulate, you don't think that that person would be wholly dedicated to Palpatine?
Yeah.
It would have been so much easier to have, okay, because we know that they know about Snoke. Obviously, they're revealing more about Snoke in the Kylo comic. But you could have said, Snoke is a growing threat. We need to separate these twins. Ben doesn't even know. They were raised completely separate. Just like Luke and Leia. You want to talk about symbolism? Like things repeat, history repeats itself. I think that would have made way more sense. Way more sense. Them being a dyad in the Force and not even being related is just so weird to me.
Plus, it would have made that steamy kiss at the end so much better. I mean, so much better.
I literally went ugh out loud when that happened on screen.
I didn't mind the kiss.
Well, for me, I felt like it was, I don't know, I felt like Rose kissing Finn was forced, and I was kind of on the same vein as this, where I was like, you didn't really need to do that. Unless we're talking about kissing in the sense of maybe old-timey, where maybe it has more of a gratitude towards it because he did just save her life.
Well, that's what I was getting ready to say. It felt to me more like, you just saved my life. We're both celebrating a victory, and we just kissed real. I kind of liked it. I don't know.
Man, I'd have to see the kiss again, because it felt more like a let's slip the tongue in kiss than
it was a good kiss.
My life kiss.
It was a good kiss.
So do either of you think that Rey should have ultimately been with Finn more in the end, or were you good with it being mostly with Kylo?
Honestly, if there's true romance, I would have liked it to be with Finn, because that chemistry is palpable.
I mean, you guys see it through this movie, Rey pretty much ignores Finn the entire time. I mean, he is head over heels in love with her. He's willing to risk his life time and time again for her. And she's so obsessed with Kylo that she doesn't even acknowledge him at significant parts of the movies. And that kind of blew me away. Yeah.
And really quick, I know, and I've seen online, there's a lot of haters about the healing aspect. I guess no one ever played Star Wars video games, because Force heal is very much a thing.
It's very common.
And so I've been very irritated. People are like, well, that's convenient. She can heal now. I'm like, we've always known Force heal has been around. It's just we don't see it very often. Just like Force speed was only ever seen in The Phantom Menace, but it's in all of the video games.
Well, plus, I was explaining to our other brother, Connor, that Jedi are just like any other people or any other profession. You've got some that are good at certain things. So, I mean, you got somebody like Rey, and I guess it's revealed Ben also, because he healed her at the end, are just so powerful in the Force that they can do everything, and even do things that we've never seen before.
Yeah.
But back in the day when you had the Jedi Order, you would have people who my thing is healing. I can't wield a lightsaber very well, but I can heal.
Specialists.
Yeah.
There are people in the extended universe that's now Legends that didn't have telekinesis in the Force. They had other powers, they could control animals, but they couldn't move objects with their mind.
Yeah. Well, they talk about that in a little bit in Jedi the Fallen Order. The character you play as, he has a special ability where he can hear echoes in the Force. So he'll touch an item and he can see the memories of that item. And he specifically,
Cool.
someone says like, isn't that unusual? And he's like, it kind of is. I've just always been naturally good at it.
Right. Yeah. And that goes for all aspects. So
the same people that are like outraged at the concept of force healing and that it felt convenient are the same people that were probably yelling at the TV during The Mandalorian when Baby Yoda's reaching out to force heal Mandalorian, and Mandalorian continuously like just closes up the carriage and is like, no. And you're like, gosh, you're so stupid. He's trying to save you right now. He's trying to save you.
Yeah,
like,
you're probably right.
The same stands are like, well, nobody's ever healed in the main saga before.
But I mean, Baby Yoda, I believe it.
Was there any final words we wanted to say about Rey before we talked about Finn, other than hopefully maybe we see more of her because she has her own lightsaber and it's yellow?
I mean, I've always been a fan of Rey. I know she's kind of been divisive in the community, but I really like her. Besides, I wish she wasn't a Palpatine. I just wish she was a Skywalker. So.
Yeah. What about you, Tim? Anything left on Rey?
No, I could kind of take it or leave it. I'm on the divisive side. I think that they could still develop that character in a way that makes her more intriguing, but I felt like the past couple of movies she's just been very one-dimensional to me.
I don't
know if that's the character they developed or if that's the actress at play.
I think it's the character.
So I would like to see more depth if they want to continue with Rey, because she was incredibly shallow if you objectively take a step back and just say, who is Rey and what is she trying to do? Well, she wants to know who her parents are, and she has this thing for Kylo, and that was it. It just completely consumed her, and I didn't feel like she was developed very well over the past two movies.
Yeah, I can see that, because she definitely wasn't developed at all in The Last Jedi, and they had to use her as a plot device in the last movie. The last movie was just such a sprint that you don't have time to develop characters anymore. I've got 2.5 hours, and even at that 2.5 hour mark, Disney's barking at me saying it might be too long, and I've got a ton to wrap up. So, we had to sacrifice some of that, and there's good and bad with it. Ultimately, I'd like to see Rey come back and maybe have somebody like Favreau or somebody who has maybe more of an eye at character development actually with her.
Yeah. And you're talking about lack of character development. I think it's a perfect segue for Finn, because I feel like Finn is a huge missed opportunity in this trilogy. We have in The Force Awakens, like, we kind of like the sense that Kylo is toying with Finn a little bit when they're like doing the lightsaber duel, but inarguably he is able to hold his own for a moment. And then to have the added context in Rise of Skywalker, where he, for whatever reason, didn't make it in the cut of the movie, that he was going to tell Rey that he's Force sensitive, made me like the character more when I watched The Force Awakens after I watched Rise of Skywalker. And I was like, man, I think this would have been a really cool character.
Well, you want to talk about... No, go ahead.
When you look at the characters one by one, and there's a lot of characters. If you just look at the main four, right? So you've got Kylo, you've got Rey, you've got Finn, and you have Poe. I think you could really argue that Finn is the most good of all four of them. You've got Poe, who maybe has the hero card and directly disobeys commands that lead to people getting killed. He's a good guy, but very flawed. And you've got Finn, who risked his life to turn his back on the dark side, that he didn't choose to go to that side, right? Like, he was raised that way. So you have to say he's objectively the most good, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and that's another missed opportunity. In current canon, a stormtrooper turning is unheard of. And for him to be just as clueless as the other protagonists when it comes to where do we go in the Star Destroyer, these stormtroopers fly now. Like, he should be a wealth of knowledge. Like, when they land and they're like, where do we go to find Chewie? he shouldn't say, I don't know, follow me. He should say, well, in a Star Destroyer, the barracks are this way, and then lead them. Like, he should be such a wealth of knowledge for the Resistance.
Yeah.
And that's how he should be the natural leader. Like, they kind of make him a leader just because he's friends with Poe in the movie. He should be a leader because he's knowledgeable about the enemy.
Yeah, and I felt like when you see The Force Awakens, they made the right stride in using him in that way. And then you get to The Last Jedi, and his character is completely wasted in The Last Jedi. He does like nothing significant in that entire movie. Not only does he not do anything significant, they don't even plant any seeds for something significant to happen in the subsequent movie. He's almost like a throwaway character in that second movie, which was just a huge missed opportunity. And, again, we keep coming back to JJ had to, work with the hand he was dealt. And I just wonder how Finn's storyline might have been different had he had the ability to continue to grow him and what he was going to do in The Last Jedi.
I would almost say that since JJ always intended for him to be Force sensitive, if JJ had reign over the trilogy, I think we would have walked into episode 9 and Finn be a Jedi with Rey.
Or like the Padawan, kind of like probably not on the same level as her, but learning.
But I'll tell you what, there's little boys out there that are moving the broom with the Force. So, we're saved in that front at least.
Yeah.
So then Leia is a huge thing in this movie because they only had about like 5 minutes, I think, of total footage to use, which ultimately felt longer because of how they're able to manipulate it. JJ had a really touching moment where he was interviewed, and he talked about how he developed this like really special relationship with Carrie Fisher. And I think it was at the end of one of her books, she had wrote a note to JJ saying, "You were an inspiration to me. Thank you for putting up with me as my director twice." And JJ like kind of got misty-eyed and was like, this was a really special moment because The Force Awakens was the first time I had directed her. And it was almost like she was speaking from the grave, knowing that I was going to be helping shepherd in the end of her legacy in Rise of Skywalker, which is kind of cool.
That is a cool story. So do you guys think she should have ultimately died in The Last Jedi and they should have gone a different direction this movie?
I do.
Yeah, they had the perfect opportunity. They already knew, and they could have just had her die.
I mean, I think the way they had her originally die was actually kind of perfect too. It was fine. And then as the twist, it's like, are you freaking kidding me right now? Mm-hmm. Like, you really don't care where this movie's going after, because you have the perfect opportunity to end her storyline and pick it up with somebody else.
Yeah, I think that ultimately it did allow them to hit beats that were always intended. Like, even if Colin Trevorrow had done episode 9, he wanted Leia to be a much bigger figure. So to have her help train Rey, I think is kind of cool. Having that flashback scene of young Rey and young Luke, I thought was really cool. Having her like have her own lightsaber was neat. I think that, they were kind of forced to obviously like write a good chunk of the first third of the movie around what scenes they had with her, or at least that's the impression I got.
Yeah.
I will say, on the terms of being impressed with it, there definitely were scenes with actors that you could tell they're acting against nothing. It just like, it was soulless in the scenes. Mm-hmm. But I was impressed that like, besides like a few very minor lighting issues, like she looked like she fit in all the scenes that she was in.
I will say that they had the perfect opportunity to get rid of her Last Jedi, but ultimately, if I look at the series as a whole, I think her storyline ending the way it did was much more satisfying to me. Like a perfect end for her being the one that ultimately stops Ben or stops Kylo and makes Kylo realize there's more than the dark side and he's going to transform into Ben. I thought that was an incredible end to her storyline.
I think a lot of people are shitting on JJ for like the Rise of Skywalker and stuff without thinking of the big picture. But this is something that like her legacy being that impactful is because of JJ. Rian Johnson didn't give two shits about realizing like, oh, what are they going to do in the next one with Leia being alive? If JJ didn't have that extra footage from The Force Awakens, we would have gotten a half-assed write-off of her being gone.
Either a write-off or you would have gotten a ton of CGI, and I'm just not confident that would have worked.
Or most grossly, a recast.
Yeah, that's like unspeakably bad.
Yeah, I don't think they would have went that far. I'm not quite as far up Leia's ass as you guys are. I think they went a little too far. I think she's put up on too much of a pedestal, especially when it comes to Luke talking about her training, and she's like, she foretold one day that someone would pick up her lightsaber and finish her story. Like, that was just stupid for me.
That is tough to have that much of a twist this late into the series.
Right, yeah. I liked the flashback, and I even liked that she said the end of my Jedi path is the death of my son, so that's like why she's not a Jedi. That's cool. But then to take it a step further and say she gave me her lightsaber because she said one day someone would finish her journey. Like, that's just silly. And can we please no longer kill people with the Force? Like, I'm so burnt out on it already. Luke dies using the Force. Leia dies using the Force. Ben dies using the Force. The Force is like life, and you should never use so much of it that it kills you, in my opinion. Luke dying the way he did was stupid. I think we all agree on that.
Yeah.
And I think going off of that, they're now like, okay, how are we going to kill these people? I don't know. And then Leia's death, I think, I didn't like it. And, they only had so much to work with. I get it. But she goes and just kind of makes Kylo have a feeling. Like, I almost think that they could have connected the Han Solo memory with her a little bit better and had that be the thing. Like, he stops in this battle, and that's when he sees Han talking to him. And that's what Leia is doing, is giving him that revamped vision of his memory with the last time with his father. And while he's, standing still having that situation, Rey goes in for the stab, and that's how it plays out. And then, because it's another force projection situation, Leia dies because for what reason, when you force project across the galaxy, you die.
Yeah, I will agree that the force killing Luke and Leia maybe doesn't fit super well, but I was okay with it killing Ben in the end, because at least at least you can say there's balance there, right? Like, he's using the Force to bring somebody else back who's equally talented in the Force. He's sacrificing himself. So when you think about what Force is, and they continually talked about the Force's balance.
Yeah.
That
one is a little bit more justified because healing, as Rey says, is I transferred some of my being,
my life force to you.
Right.
Yeah.
So you can argue that. The problem is that he's now the third one to die from. So
the last one's the only one that makes sense.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I think that my honorable mentions that don't necessarily require a whole lot of conversation are: one, Maz Kanata was a puppet, not CG in this movie, which was interesting. I really enjoyed and was pleasantly surprised by Han Solo's appearance and how the dialogue and everything was the same, but it was acted differently with different contexts. I thought that was a beautiful symmetry moment. And let's give it up for all the weird cult followers of Palpatine living on Exegol, because they were just chilling there. The visual dictionary says that those are the inhabitants of Exegol. Their whole purpose is to worship the Sith, and all of the Sith troopers were their children.
Well, that's dumb as fuck.
I preferred the rumor that or the idea that they were all botched clones of Palpatine. I was like, that would be awesome. That his hubris is so massive, and he's so stuck on himself that he kept his botched clones alive just to worship him.
I also saw a bunch of things saying, are these all the past Sith? Everybody was saying that. And I was like, doesn't the visual dictionary, which has been out since before the movies, say that what these things are? Why are you?
Yeah.
And as another homage, we got Knights of Kylo finally in this movie.
Oh, thank you for bringing them up. I almost forgot.
What
a waste.
And I thought you thought they were a waste. I thought they were well used in this movie, but ultimately waste over the I mean, at least you got to see them actually be badasses and actually.
Did
You
you?
didn't see them do anything. They didn't do anything.
You got to see them walk around until you realize that Ben's better than them, and he can slaughter them without.
The only time we see them
trying.
do anything is fight Ben at the end, and he kills them all in 2 minutes.
I mean, he kind of gets his ass kicked for a minute, doesn't he?
Without the lightsaber, they kind of like punch him, and then he grabs his lightsaber and just like
when you talk
him.
about Star Wars bad guys, and you're not talking about the big bad, the Sith. Okay, you're looking at your stormtroopers and such.
I agree that they
useless.
are awesome.
So at least the Knights of Kylo appeared to be skilled fighters.
I mean, I agree that they are awesome, but they are terribly underutilized. And
I would have loved to have seen them be a huge part of this movie.
They're really diving into them on the Rise of Kylo Ren comic book. So I will say they are getting their due justice in other ways, but in the films, they were done dirty.
Yeah, they were done real dirty. It would have been so cool to see Chewbacca fight them. Yeah. I thought we were going to see that when they snuck up behind Chewie. I thought that weird.
I'm going backwards for a second. Isn't it super ironic that like Kylo's story turned on its head when Luke decided that he needed to kill Kylo and failed at doing so, and then Kylo ultimately pulls a Luke and kills everybody who he's trained up? It's like incredibly funny to me.
But yeah, there's a lot to say about this movie.
Yeah. Is there, I think we've touched on basically everything that we laid out. Did you want to go further into the MCU comparison, Tim? Or are you satisfied with talking?
No, I think we're good. I mean, just not there being no logical reason as to why they didn't take the blueprint for MCU and say, hey, we're going to apply significant aspects to it, still blows my mind. Probably trillions of dollars they've made off of the MCU universe. And they are going to make a fraction of that through Star Wars, which is just mind-blowing.
Yeah. I think the one issue that I have is how Palpatine died. How many times is this motherfucker going to have his lightning turned against him by a lightsaber? Like, I guess I don't necessarily have readily in my back pocket a better way for that to have gone down.
Well, she should have just reflected it back at him or something, like with her force powers.
Yeah, I keep coming back to hubris, like you said, like him just being so caught up in the moment, thinking I'm so much better than you, and there's no way this is going to work, and it just continues to work, you know?
Yeah. And apparently in the novelized version of Jedi, the reason he continues to use his lightning when Vader picks him up and throws him over is because he gets so angry and confused about what's happening that it just continues to fuel his lightning. So you could kind of use that to explain away like both times that he does that. Like he's so stuck in his hubris, like you guys said, but then at the same time, like he's so angry that he just can't stop.
And they did a good job of showing that with Rey. The first time you see the lightning with her, right? They're fighting over the Millennium Falcon, or not the Millennium Falcon. They're fighting over the transport ship that they think Chewie's in, and you just see this burst of anger during the fight. So yeah, that is good. I mean, you do see that for sure with Rey and her losing control, and that being the byproduct of it.
Yeah. The only last two things that I really want to make sure I say about Palpatine is, one, a lot of people complained about the end and how like ultimate talking to Rey and stuff was like a complete rehash of Return of the Jedi with Luke Skywalker. My response to that is, this man is clearly, while he's powerful and methodical, he's kind of a one-trick pony. Like, he tried it once, it didn't fail, but it doesn't mean he's not going to try it again. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
that's kind of how I interpreted it. And
that's the whole series.
Yeah.
Right? We're going to blow up planets.
Yeah. And the other thing that I wanted to say was, it's something that I've seen people kind of talk about online, which is if the ritual was to kill him and then all the Sith go on Rey killed him.
Well, it had to be done in hate. She had to have embraced the dark side and killed him with anger.
Oh, okay.
And instead it ended up being his own anger that killed him. Right?
Exactly. Yep.
And I hated the whole, all the Jedi are in you and all the Sith are in me. That whole shtick.
Yeah, that was strange. I didn't like it either. That also kind of brings me to one final thing that I would like say is I didn't like the quick turn that we got from the Emperor saying, I've been every voice you've ever heard inside of Kylo. Like he likes Kylo. I want Rey dead. And even up until Rey meets Palpatine, the whole shtick has been Palpatine's trying to kill her. Like ever since she was a little girl. And then all of a sudden it's like, actually, you're the one I wanted the whole time. That was a little, it wasn't handled that well, I guess is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
And like, I guess this knowledge that I have is from the extended stuff, which necessarily isn't canon anymore. But Clayton, correct me if I'm wrong, but clones can't be force sensitive, correct?
I believe that is correct.
So,
however,
I still have issues with Snoke in that he calls it that he says he was his puppeteer. He says, I've been all the voices in your head, and uses Snoke's voice. But he also says that Snoke trained him well. So Snoke is his own thing.
Yeah.
I'm just very confused on him.
I'd have to do more research on that because some of the first comics that came out exploring like what happened right after Return of the Jedi, the Emperor does come back, and it comes back through a clone. So, and I couldn't tell you if that clone was force sensitive or not.
Gotcha. Well, as far as like this movie goes, I feel like I've said my piece, and at the end of the day, I cannot fault JJ for what happened, because at the end of the day, reviewing this movie means you have to review the trilogy and how it was mishandled, because you're coming to the end of a trilogy. You're coming into the end of 9 movies. This last leg of the race wasn't planned, and unfairly so, it was all given to JJ, and he had to do something with it. And you muddy the waters with rumors of overbearing executives poking their noses in things. You know, there are credence to those rumors because Matt Smith was supposed to be in the movie, and he's nowhere to be seen. And the rumors are that was a totally different plot. So it's just thank the Force for the Mandalorian.
And at least we don't have to give it a proper Jedi burial like we should probably do with The Last Jedi, right?
Yeah.
Like we don't have to burn our DVDs and never watch it again. I'm looking forward to watching it again. I've only seen it once, but it's definitely a movie that I can see myself watching multiple times. Like you said early, Clayton, like I think you just kind of have to come to grips with going into it with the right expectation, saying it's not going to be a perfect movie. It's a sprint that has to wrap up storylines that are almost impossible to wrap up, and just enjoy it for what it is. And what it is visually impressive and beautiful with great action and a fun movie. I mean, so at the end of the day, it's flawed, but it's a fun movie.
Well said. All right. Well, let's move on from that topic. Move into our closing segment, which I believe Tim will have something fun for us to do to end our time together.
Yeah, so we're going to do some fun things at the end of the segments moving forward. We'll do some Would You Rathers and things like that. And man, this is almost unfair because I'm going to give you an impossible one. But I laughed so hard when I wrote this. Okay. So everybody's played the you've got to sleep with one, you've got to kill one, and you've got to marry one game, right?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to give you an impossible list.
Oh, God. Okay.
Jar Jar Binks, C-3PO, and Rian Johnson.
Oh, my God. Kill Rian Johnson.
Kill Rian Johnson, marry C-3PO, sleep with Jar Jar.
That's what I was going to say.
We're a dyad in the Force.
We're a dyad in the Force, and that wasn't hard at all.
Yeah, that wasn't hard. I'm incredibly
You should have known that adding Rian Johnson to that list would make it too easy.
It's true.
That's why I laughed so hard. So I was trying to think of the third one, and I'm like, I got to write down Rian Johnson. It's too perfect.
3PO would make a phenomenal companion / spouse.
Oh, I don't know. He'd be nagging all the time.
Well, yeah, but he would do everything for you. But he would do everything for you.
Jar Jar would be nagging and too much. That's why you do him and you brew him.
Do him and you brew him.
Thinking about how that would go, and it's kind of giving me nightmares, I think.
Imagine what his eyes do during...
His ears are probably...
Lots of things to hang on to. Lots of things.
He does have a crazy tongue.
Oh, good God. You just ruined my night. You just ruined my night.
Ruined your night because you'll be up all night.
How am I supposed to sleep now? I'm so hot and bothered thinking about Jar Jar.
You'll be so hot and bothered you won't be able to sleep.
Miza talk dirty to you.
Miza thinks he's on your mind.
No. All right, folks. Well, that does it for Into the Nerdosphere this week. Remember, you can find us on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, and the podcast service of your choice. Remember, if you like what we do and you want to support us, leave us a review, subscribe to the podcast, and if you really love us, check us out at patreon.com/the Nerdosphere. Have a great week, and we will see you next time.